I believe this is truly becoming a national security concern. Whether it's healthcare, whether it's the military, semiconductors form the core of our modern economy. I believe it's critical that we dramatically increase domestic manufacturing as well as the fabrication of semiconductors and ramp up our enforcement of intellectual property violations by China. And I believe the Senate version of USICA does just that. And they do that through the important CHIPS funding and also with the addition of my bipartisan Protecting IP Act. I believe it's critical that our colleagues across the aisle abandon their partisan tax and spend proposals and that Congress focuses on this very real national security threat by passing the bipartisan Senate USICA bill. However, BIS can be doing more right now, I believe, with their existing authorities. It's clear that China is seeking to leapfrog semiconductor technology by stealing American IP, and companies that are supposed to be on your entity list are still finding a way to access American intellectual property. So here's my question. What is BIS doing to ensure that high-tech and national security IP is not ending up in the hands of the Chinese government?
Thank you for that question. And that's frankly what I spend my sleeping and waking hours thinking about, Senator. We do have some cutoff points at the most sensitive, highest tech on semiconductors and the tooling that would make those semiconductors being allowed to be exported to China. So there's a cutoff point. I'm conducting a complete review over those policies within BIS right now. And then there's also an interagency process looking at this. But so there is a red line on what we would allow the Chinese to access. With regard to listing folks on the entity list, I can't talk about any existing investigations that we may have, but we were always looking at all sources of data, open source, input from articles, from think tanks, and certainly classified information on what Chinese firms may be doing. And we do have a legal process that is interagency to do that. And I always want to make sure that I have the legal standing to get someone on the entity list that if they happen to sue us, we win.
Mr. Estevez, how much time had you spent in China before you served in this capacity?
0. Never
been there?
Never been there. Partly because my whole career has been with the Department of Defense.
Whereabouts in the region have you traveled outside of China?
I've been, Japan, Korea, throughout.
Yeah. So I have, I lived in China for 6 years, working for Procter & Gamble, had 2 kids born in Hong Kong. And one of the things one of my missions serving the United States Senate is to take U.S. senators, this is pre-COVID, into China and to see it. And the supply chain issues are very, very critical. But equally critical, and perhaps even a greater threat, is the innovation ecosystem that China is building. STEM graduation rates, 10 times greater than the United States of America. They're building not only in terms of the scale of the innovation ecosystem, but now the quality of the IP that they can generate. So it's about stealing IP, but it's now shifting increasingly to generating IP. And I think this is one of the greatest threats we face as a nation over the course of the next several decades.
Senator, agree that they have an incredible ecosystem. I would put our ecosystem of a free and independent thought process up against a directed ecosystem against that. But
as long as we can keep our freedom, the rule of law, abundant supplies of energy, tax codes that incentivize American innovation, I agree with you. The threats, I believe, to our long-term competitiveness are not outside this city, but they're right here in this city.
Let's pass the BIA. Let's get CHIPS funding out there.
No, we agree on that. Well, thank you. And I don't want to we should not be underestimating the threat that China presents long term. I'm not betting against the U.S. at all. As long as we stay free, have the rule of law, and have policies that incentivize innovation. we're going to win, but it's a very real threat.
Agree with you, Senator.
Thank you.
Senator Warner of Virginia is recognized from his office.
Thank you, Mr.